everybody, to Off the Cuff. Adam Banks here with you. And as promised, I have in the studio, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Max Duffy. And before I get to Max, I just want to do a little interview, or a little intro, rather. Max Duffy is an Australian-American football punter for the Pittsburgh Maulers of the United States Football League. He played college football at the great state of Kentucky for the Kentucky Wildcats. Max was a 3-year starter during his stay in Lexington and appeared in 34 games for head coach Mark Stoops. For his career, Max averaged 46 yards per attempt and led the nation in average during the 2019 season. That year, Max brought home the Ray Guy Award, which is given to the best punter in college football, to go along with the first team All-American honors. He is a former professional Australian rules football player for the Fremantle, I hope I said that right, Football Club in the Australian Football League. He was rated as the #1 punting prospect in the class of 2018 by Ray Guy's ProKicker.com. Max, in addition to playing football, hosts a KSR podcast called Pin It Deep with his co-hosts Miles Butler and Brent Wainscott. But happy to be joined now by the man himself, Mr. Max Duffy. Max, how are you?
That's the nicest anyone's ever been to me, I think, so I appreciate it. These studios, I can guarantee you, are a lot nicer than the Pin It Deep studios at the top of KS Bar, so I appreciate this. That's
surprising, too, because I told you the KSR just studios in general, it's like the Roman Empire of radio. I really do believe that. But, Max, I just got finished doing your show as well, Pin It Deep, and it was interesting. I went on there as kind of a bad guy, a heel, talking about your best friend, Mark Stoops. What's the feedback been like since I got off your show?
We may have set you up a little bit and maybe, exaggerated one or two things. Not that we ever exaggerate the truth, but never ruin a good story with the truth, as I always say. And yeah, I can't say it's been real warm for you, to be honest. I think if anything, maybe you might pick up some listeners just so they can yell at you.
Yes, well, I woke up to a liked picture from I posted a picture of you, me, and Miles, and Drew Franklin liked it. Drew's never liked any of my stuff ever, so the fact that he liked this photo, I'm like, okay, this is actually, people are listening to this. I got on your Twitter and was reading some of the comments. People have called me a clown. People have called me an idiot. People have begged you never to have me back on the show. And I'm like, well, maybe I did my job.
You 100% did your job, and we will have you back, I'm sure, to have more Mark Stoops takes, especially when we're 9-0 at some stage or something this season. We'll get you back on, and we'll ask if you were super confident about what you thought.
So I've got so much to talk to you about, but since we are talking about Mark Stoops, I feel like that you guys do have, in real life, a close relationship. So can you talk a little bit about your Mark Stoops relationship?
There's no doubt we do. We have a very good relationship, obviously. Probably a little less as it would be now that I'm not playing. But, if we see each other out, or if I see something that I think's funny or that he would appreciate, I'll send him a little text. We became close one day. I tell a story on my podcast. We became close one day when I was driving into the Starbucks car park, and out he walked, and he was on his phone so attentively that he walked basically straight in front of me. And if I didn't slam on the brakes, we might not have had a head coach anymore. So we've had, run-ins close with almost killing each other. He probably almost killed me a few times when I was out in the field. So it's good, and I think he's been a great addition.
I mean, yes, he seems like a wonderful human being and a guy that you could bond with. But it was fun to talk about him. But Max, let's talk about just your time at UK. You played as a punter. And a lot of my listeners might not listen to they might not watch a lot of sports. They might not listen to a lot of sports talk radio. So explain what your main job on the field is as a punter.
Well, I could say my main job, honestly, was just to get front row seats to watch everyone else, to be honest, most of the time, especially if we're winning. I know one game against Louisville, I literally didn't touch the field. But no, basically, fourth down, we can't convert. They send me out, and I have to try and boot it as far as I can down the field without getting a touchback, so kicking it in the end zone. And I guess I had somewhat success. It was very good of you to say Fremantle, almost correctly, Fremantle.
Okay.
But obviously come from a kicking background of coming from Australia, and then managed to get recruited to come over here, and had a great time.
Yeah, so I think the first time I met you, the first thing that came out of my mouth contrary to popular belief, it was not that Mark Stoops was the worst coach ever. It was, does it freak you out being from Australia, from the other side of the earth? Because to me, if I would just sit down and think about that for 5 seconds, I would have a panic attack.
Yeah, it does. And I say to people all the time, it's crazy that I can come from a country that is literally on the other side of the world, and we can sit here and we know exactly what each other are talking about 99% of the time. There's definitely some times where I make a reference that people don't understand, or you guys make maybe a reference that I don't. But it is pretty astounding, and honestly, I can't wait to go home as much as I love this country. Not for permanent. I'd love to come back, but I haven't been home in about 2.5 years, so it'll be nice to get back to Australia at some stage soon.
So how often do you get to see your folks?
I haven't seen my family for a long time, so I'm seeing my sisters. Great timing, in about 9 days, and then I'll get to see them for the first time in honestly over 2.5 years. So since that last time, I was saying to my sister the other day, in the last 5 years, I've probably seen my family a total of about 14 days. So
wow.
Not a whole lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Australia is not just a place you can get in the car and ride up the road and go visit people.
It was particularly during COVID as well, and so being able to travel, Australia kind of timed their COVID up a little bit different than America, and it's just a little bit because it's so far away. So COVID restrictions have really limited that, yeah.
So is it winter in Australia right now?
It is. It's apparently pouring with rain. My brother's expecting a baby, and he said he's scared almost to ride on the roads at the moment because there's so many trees that have fallen down.
So when it's nighttime here, is it daytime there?
Yes, it is. Yes. When I called him at 8 o'clock this morning, it was 9 p.m. At night.
Okay. Yeah. Well, being over here in Kentucky, in America, what's the biggest cultural difference you see here versus where you're from?
A lot of fat people. Honestly, there's not a whole lot. I would say you guys definitely get into your politics pretty heavily. We don't really do that as much back home. Very patriotic people over here, which is great. It is a great country, and there's so many good things about it. But definitely, you guys are pretty confident that you're number one by a long, long way. And you probably think you're number 2, 3, and 4 as well most of the time. But no, it's awesome. I love being here, and honestly, there's so many similarities to Australia.
So even with the schooling system, is it just kind of the same thing, K through 12?
It is. Our education's all free, basically. So that's probably a slight difference. College has no sports, so college is purely for academics. And normally, because of that, they're not really made for profit. So you kind of go there, get your education, get out of there. They're not, there's no frat life, there's no sorority life, there's no come because our facilities are great. It's just this is a great way to get educated, and then you can get out and out of there.
Okay, so after your high school, you couldn't go to college to play football, so that's why you joined the Australian League.
Yeah, so it's different football. So it's Australian rules football, if you want to Google it. Their finals are about to come up, so it's a great time to get a part of it. I think during COVID, there was about 1 week where all sports in the world had shut down except for the Australian Football League.
Oh, wow.
And so people tuned in for about 1 week.
Yeah.
But it used to be on ESPN when ESPN first came out. So lots of older Americans, when they actually talk to me, will be like, I remember when AFL used to be on ESPN. So Australian rules, very different. It's like a combination of basketball, soccer, American football, lacrosse, everything kind of put together. Full tackle, no pads, no helmet. But slightly different. So if you want to look at it, you'd have to YouTube it. Okay,
so you're playing and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I want more. I want to further my career. You probably also want to get a little taste of that American college life. So when did Kentucky get on your radar?
To answer that honestly, I didn't. So Australian football plays really well. Yeah. It's the biggest sport in Australia. Beats cricket, beats any Olympic sport, beats basketball, beats soccer, all of them. Biggest sport. So for me, I didn't want to leave. I got cut. So for me, it was, do I want to play semi-professional or would I want to keep furthering myself? Well, I didn't know if I was going to get back in the professional league, and I heard about some people coming over here and punting at college level, and I was like, well, maybe I can give it a shot and see how I go. I didn't know if I was going to be good, bad, or indifferent, and luckily it worked out.
Can the professional players over in Australia, though, do they make the money like the players in the NFL make?
No, but I would say average salary would be about $300,000 to $400,000. The best paid players maybe would be on $1.5 to $2 million. So, not great without not being terrible. I mean, it's definitely enough, obviously, to live on easily, but not like, Patrick Mahomes style money, no.
So when you were playing football, I read, now maybe this is true, untrue, that you were a tree, is it called a tree looper?
Tree lopper.
Tree lopper. Okay,
yeah.
Well, what is that?
Okay, so when I got cut, obviously I had to keep some money coming in, particularly if I wanted to pay. We paid a bit of money to kind of join the program, come over here. I didn't really want to have a job while I was training, so I wanted to earn as much money as I could quickly, and one of my friends owns a tree lopping business, which is cutting trees down, basically.
Right.
And so I said, well, I'll jump in, because I didn't really want to go to university or, go do anything. I was just like, let me get outside and let me do something. So I cut trees down for about 6 to 12 months and loved it.
That's the dangerous, that's the most dangerous, like, blue-collar job ever.
There was some injuries happened. Thankfully not for me.
Yeah.
But no, for sure. It is, but I love it though. Like, I thought that was awesome. And, I know how to fix a chainsaw. I know how to do all those kind of things, which is nice.
That's pretty cool. Okay, I want to talk about Pin It Deep podcast. This seems to be your new niche. I feel like that you enjoy it. You can tell it comes across when you're doing your shows. I've recently just went back and started listening. I'm going to admit, I wasn't a big listener, but ever since I got familiar with who you were over the last couple of weeks, I've just went back and just listened to these shows, and they are really funny. They're good. So how did this podcast, Pin It Deep, come about?
I guess just out of boredom, honestly. I've been trying to make the NFL. Obviously, when I came out, I was highly projected. It didn't work out. I signed with the Denver Broncos. I was with Broncos during a preseason, got cut before the season started, and basically was sitting around waiting for my next opportunity. And I couldn't really commit to a proper job because I don't know if I'm going to get picked up the next week, month later, year later, whatever it's going to be. So what can keep me busy and what do I like doing? Well, I don't think this, but my friends would say I like talking a lot.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that, I talk about sports okay. But I also had a unique aspect where I was very close to lots of the guys on the team, the coaches. And so I thought, why don't I talk about Kentucky football this year? Now, I knew nothing about who covers it. To be honest, I'd heard of KSR, but I'd never listened to a radio show of theirs. I'd never listened to anyone's radio show. So I was like, well, maybe I'll be the only guy that's talking about it. I don't know. Because it still blows my mind how much people love Kentucky football. So for me, it's just this thing that happens on Saturdays and it's whatever, but people love it. So I was like, well, maybe I can do that. So I got in contact with Matt Jones. Matt basically said, well, what do you want to do? And I told him, well, I'd like to do this. And he said, all right, well, give it a shot. And if you guys are terrible, I'm going to tell you you're terrible. I'm not giving you a podcast. Right. So he basically had to do a tryout, which was hilarious. And he's like, yeah, you guys are all right at this. I'll give you a shot. So since then, it's gone really well.
I feel like being under his umbrella helps a lot, too, because KSR, the amount of listeners that radio show gets is just, it blows my mind. So I'm assuming that your podcast gets like mass listeners.
We do okay. Definitely not as good as KSR. We did for a little while start up a petition of trying to get as many people call into Matt's show and tell him that our show is better than his, which was very funny for a while. And then he basically just stopped taking those callers because we had, I think in my first couple of weeks, he was helping us obviously promote it. He said it once or twice, but also I'm on there semi-regularly, hoping to be a bit more regular as we go. But we basically said, hey, call Matt up and tell him how good our show is compared to his.
Yeah.
And because there's a love-hate relationship with Matt Jones in the state. And so people were very happy to call in and say, hey, Matt, your show isn't even close to Max's. And we thought that was so funny, and Matt wasn't happy about it.
Yeah, that probably hurt his ego. So if you do get on KSR more, it's going to be around football season. So what will you bring to that table that Matt and Ryan and Drew don't?
Some footballing ability.
Yeah, really.
And some football, probably educated opinions that, Matt's great, right? And Drew's great, but I guess just like an inside information of what's going on inside the locker room and a feel for if this happens, what does that actually feel like for the players? Because everyone can guess and as players, we got very frustrated sometimes of this is everyone's take. And we're like, that's not even close. Like, we don't think that. Like, you guys are guessing because you don't know what it feels like to be in a locker room. So a little bit more insight of what it feels like to be a player for as little as I participated on the field. And then hopefully just some insight. And, every now and then a funny story about something that they wouldn't know happened when I was at University of Kentucky.
Yeah, I would say that you'll bring a player perspective. And it's amazing, too, when Matt just mentions somebody on that show, how much it just helps. It's promoting. I don't want to blow up his ego anymore than what it probably already is. But the name Pin It Deep, I've been scratching my head as to where you came up with that. What does that mean?
So we had lots of ideas. I think for a while it was like I can't remember exactly what it was, but the what's it called? The not the algorithm. What am I thinking about? The
formula, maybe?
No, when you break down words into just what they start with. No. It was going to end not very well. So we decided we couldn't go with that one. But Pin It Deep is basically when you're punting, what you're trying to do is pin them deep. Okay. So you're trying to pin the ball as deep as you can on the field, so they have to start closer to their goal line. So basically, pin it deep with obviously a play on words with plenty of things. That was what we went with.
Okay, and you got two co-hosts. You've got Miles Butler and then Brent...
Wayne Scott.
Yeah. Sorry, Brent.
That's okay. No, you can forget his name as many times as you want.
I was hoping Brent would join you today, but I guess he had better things to do. But you've got two co-hosts. How did they become involved? Did you choose them personally to do this show with you?
Me and Miles were great friends. So me and Miles have always, got along really well. And I always thought if I'm going to run a show, I'd like someone that I probably already have some rapport with. Otherwise, it's tough, especially I would have thought through the first few weeks, to kind of know what the other person's going to say or how they're thinking and what their strengths are. Miles doesn't always talk a lot, but he's very funny when he does, and he's got some great takes that I genuinely agree with, so I like to be able to throw to him. And Brent basically just got told to, hey, you got to turn up and help these guys record. They know nothing about recording or doing a podcast. And he was like, I don't want to do this. Like, this would be another couple guys that are terrible. Like, right. He said that there's some guys that he has to do that for that just, he's like, it's hard to listen to. And then he turned up and we were like, so is what we did, like, can you put that together? And he's like, yeah, can I also be on the show? And we're like, what do you mean? He's like, I think I could give a good fan perspective. I think you guys are missing like one more. And we were like, we're not, but okay. If you're going to help us the whole time, then sure, jump in. And honestly, like, he has a good fan perspective sometimes that we don't think of because we are players, which is great, but also he happens to be the brunt of a lot of our jokes, brought on by himself, I must say, when you forget equipment that you're supposed to record with, or if you don't put a podcast out because you forgot, then normally you bring it upon yourself. But no, he's great to have, and he actually kind of semi-hosted it last year just because I hated doing intros.
Right.
And so I just said, you do the intro, then I'll take it from there. Yeah. I've tried to get better at that this year.
Why don't you like intros? You just feel like you stumble?
It's just awkward to start off when you're all sitting around.
Like what I did with you.
Yeah, it's just an awkward thing to start off with, and I never know what to say to start. And now, I mean, obviously it's easy, really. But like for me, I was just like, well, if Brent gets it going, then we're in the rhythm, and then I can just take it from there.
No, I do understand that. No, I mean, actually thinking about it, it probably would have been more comfortable for everybody in the studio if you would have just came in and I would have just started talking to you versus sitting here reading a intro and having you sit through it.
And our style of show of what we kind of wanted to do was a little bit, and we don't go back and forth as much. We genuinely agree a little bit. But Skip Bayless, Shannon Sharp, where there's normally a host that throws them the subjects and then we debate them. And so it was kind of like I'd give him the topics, and then Brent would be like, here's the topic, you guys talk about it, and then he'd come in every now and then.
Oh, gotcha. It's great. It's working for you all, and I'm excited to hear more episodes. So the episode that I was on, was that the first episode of this year's season?
Yes, it is, yes. So that'll be the first one. We wanted to get the ball rolling, and what better way than someone that just completely hates Mark Stoops. So that was great. We wanted something that, was going to be a little bit different, and we were honestly out of ideas until you came up and said hello. So that was great. We think we're going to have a really, really good guest this year, which will help us. I mean, as popular as we were last year, you throw in a guest that may or may not be the quarterback of the team, then it's going to be helped a lot. So we're hoping we can get someone that's going to be great. And that will be awesome for football fans to listen to, but also just in general, if you want to have a laugh at things, we don't talk X's and O's. It's just a bit of football.
Clearly, because when I was going on the show on Pin It Deep, I was sitting here thinking, oh my God, they're wanting to talk brass tacks with me about football. And I host a show where I talk about, like, a topic might be, where's the most embarrassing place you've had to use the bathroom? Yeah. It's like, I don't know football like that, but it was very chill. Nothing is ever as bad as what you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
So when I got there, you guys were just very warm, and we poked fun a little bit, but it was all good, man. I really had a good time.
It's probably the first time we've ever had to bring in any sort of notes or stats, because I just wanted to be able to reel off some stats about Stoops, and I've normally just made them up on the spot, which I made half of them up on the spot, honestly. But like, it's the first time we've ever done that. And as you can see, we sit around, we have a few beers normally while we're doing it, and it's very relaxed, yes.
Right. Well, okay, so I want to talk about, just really quick, because I'm sure the listeners want to hear kind of inside, behind-the-scenes scoop. So you obviously played for Kentucky for 3 years.
Yes.
And you were in the locker room. You see what goes on that we don't get to see. Any funny, crazy things you want to share? Maybe anything that the fans might not know that you've never shared, even on your own show. And if you don't, that's fine, because I don't want to say anything that just gets you in trouble.
I'm trying to think, because we kind of we had all these stories when I first came on, and now to put me on the spot, there's going to be a little bit tough. Obviously had the story about almost killing our head coach, which was funny. I guess one that we've told before that Kentucky people in general will probably not enjoy about me, but enjoy the story, is when my career was finished, Mark invites some of the guys that he likes. Well, he likes all of us, but maybe a little bit more than some of the others over for a drink. And so
he wouldn't have invited me.
And so I was lucky enough to, get the invite, get the call up, and his little treat for us was he's bringing out a bottle of Pappy.
Okay.
Well, obviously, a bottle of Pappy's worth a little bit of money, and so everyone in Kentucky likes to think they're a bourbon connoisseur. And so all the guys are like, oh, yeah, I can taste the difference between, Kentucky Gentleman or something like that, which is a complete lie. And I grabbed it, and I just poured Coke in it. And he wasn't happy about it.
Right.
And I said, Coach, it doesn't matter. I don't think there is anything better than Pappy, but you could find something better than Pappy. I'm just still going to put Coke in it. It tastes the same regardless. And I'm sorry if Pappy wanted to give me a free bottle. And I've ruined that. But you could give me Kentucky Gentleman in a cup, and you could give me Pappy. I love both of them, but you got to put some Coke in there.
Right. A lot of people argue and say you ruin the taste with adding any type of mixture. But he's even got his own bourbon now, don't he?
He does. So he probably thinks he's a little bit better than Pappy now. But it's just funny because he said, you're never having my Pappy ever again.
Well, that's hilarious. So do you watch Kentucky basketball at all?
A little. I definitely have been onto it more since I've been on KSR a little more. So, yeah, for sure, trying to. Don't really know a whole lot of the ins and outs, and don't follow it until the season starts, to be honest.
You think Cal's doing a good job here?
Look, I think after watching last year, very disappointing to lose to St. Peter's, obviously. Do I think he's doing a good job? Yeah, sure. I mean, I think they're about to get, 4 of the top 10 recruits or something again. I don't know. It gets said all the time. People love the basketball team way too much. I think for a basketball state that is as good at recruiting as what we should have won more. Yeah. For sure. We should have won some national championships.
Absolutely.
I think you could easily agree with that, because we do get the top talent.
Yeah.
Now, it's hard when they're freshmen sometimes, but, I mean, he does a great job. I don't think you could recruit as well as he does without him. So they have to keep him, but it would be nice to win some more national championships, particularly because Lexington would be very fun if we did.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I was here when I wasn't living here the last time they won, but I got to come and go to, I'm sure you've heard of the famous State Street.
Yes.
So I've not yet got to experience as a resident here. But all right, Max, tell everyone where they can follow you on social media and how they can listen to the KSR Pin It Deep podcast.
So you could find the Pin It Deep podcast firstly on Twitter at Pin It Deep KSR. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on all of them. If you type in Pin It Deep, it should come up. We have links on our Twitter, all those kind of things. And my personal Twitter account, if you just want to yell at me or if you want to send me any of your takes, I think is Max_Duffy, but hopefully if you just type in Max Duffy, it'll be somewhere near the top.
I'm sure, yeah, you'll be a lot easier to find than your fans trying to find me.
I actually tried to find you so I could tag you, and I typed in, and now I don't know if I screwed this up, but I typed in Adam Banks, I typed in off the cuff, and I was scrolling, and I don't know if maybe I just missed a profile picture that I was supposed to see, but I couldn't find it because I was going to tag you.
Drew found it. I don't know how he found it, but he found me on Instagram,
So Instagram, yes. So Twitter, I was looking. Then I couldn't find it.
No, I have, man. It's because I'm so under the radar. That's
perfect, though. That's perfect.
All my social media plugs are the Adam Banks.
Okay.
Yeah, like I'm somebody.
Yeah.
But that I've got.
It's not a lie.
I mean, after your show.
Yeah.
I mean, people are asking me ever since I did it, like, how did this even happen? And I tell them, I was like, honestly, I just met Max at an OVW wrestling show and started talking, and it just kind of happened.
Well, here's the thing as well. With our show, we don't want, the big stars. We're not trying to get Will Levis. We're not trying to get, now, if they want to, we will do it.
Right.
But we had a show last year that was honestly almost our best show, and in terms of popularity and feedback. We talked about cows for about 45 minutes with one of my friends that is a farmer.
Right.
Because I said, hey, I got no one this week. If you want to come on, I'm happy to talk cows with you for 45 minutes. And it was a great conversation. We obviously talked a little football, but he was a farmer, and he's a beef farmer, and he didn't even know where, like, a New York strip, what part of the cow that comes from. So just little things like that. We do throw in non-football topics as well.
Yeah, so I met you at the OVW wrestling show. So are you a wrestling fan, or was you just there to support Matt?
Matt had asked me about 250 times if I wanted to come to one, and I was sick of getting asked, so I'm like, yeah, I better go. But no, I'd always wanted to go to one of his events because I'd heard different opinions, and I just wanted to go there and have a good time. I took a few friends, as you would know, that decided to buy masks, and it was a great night.
Yeah, they played, I think I met one Australian football player from Colorado State. Yes, he played. I liked him a lot. He's doing equestrian stuff now, he said, here in Lexington. Yep. So, yeah, a lot. You rode with some cool people. I'm surprised. We hit it off so good, Max. I'm surprised we didn't go out for beers after that.
Hey, exactly. I would have been happy to go get a Country Boy beer or something like that. I know we consumed a few of them while we were watching. So,
well, maybe we can make that a plan in the future. We can have some pappies.
With Coke, yes.
With Coke. All right. Well, Max Duffy, ladies and gentlemen. Max, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure.
No problems. Thanks for having me.